Hey, good afternoon. Carl Rominger here, coming live from the WHP studios, 540-0580. And yes, that was what you thought it was. Okay, you've got a legal question. Call in, 540-0580. I'll answer it here on the air. Also want to remind you, we updated our website, romingerlaw.com. And of course, the show is weekendappointment.com, where you can post your questions, etc. But the law firm website, if you want to see what the attorneys look like, learn a little bit more about me and what kind of services we offer, our office locations, etc., go to romingerlaw.com, and we have a news feed on there where we put up some exclusive articles. Most recently, we have one on online divorce services and if they're really a good option or not, one of these LegalZoom-type divorces. The most recent posting we just put up is Should I Fight My Traffic Ticket? And it kind of explains some of the pitfalls about just pleading guilty. Seems like a lot of folks out there just plead guilty to their traffic tickets, and I understand you don't want to be hassled. But there are a lot of collateral consequences to those, insurance increases. And the biggest thing is, you not only got your first traffic ticket, you've driving 40 years, it's never going to happen to you again, and then you get the second one. Now all of a sudden you got 2 convictions on your record because if you didn't do anything about the first one, you don't do anything about the second one, you're in really bad shape. Whereas some sleazy, skeezy guy who was smart enough to get an attorney every time he got a ticket and has gotten out of 9 of them, gets his 10th one, and he gets less consequences than you because you thought you were just doing the right thing, sending it in. So anyhow, I can go on and on and on. But we do have a little report there on romingerlaw.com that you can read about fighting your traffic ticket and whether it's a good idea or not. And, of course, I give you the general gist. We're going to tell you it is. But we give you some specifics in there about points and how it can affect you. We report up there that we had on put on Weekend Appointment before. Can the police search my car? And an all-time favorite are my Facebook postings private because the answer is right there. So if you go to romingerlaw.com, you can look all that stuff over. 540-0580, Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. Frank, you're on the air.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call. I have a question. When a person dies in Pennsylvania and they have a will.
Yes.
I heard of a case where that will was broken. Now, how, like the people that were supposed to get the interest on the money of the will,
okay,
I heard that they somehow worked it out that they broke the will and they got the money now instead of just the interest that they were supposed to get.
Well, I don't know specifics of what you're talking about, but let me give you an example. Usually we'd talk about trusts in a scenario like what you're talking about, but if you talk about a will, sometimes wills aren't valid, and sometimes the language in a will is not valid. And so, we do free wills for folks. If you go to weekendappointment.com, you can sign up and get one. And one of the things I tell everybody when we meet in the office is the reason it's important to have a lawyer write the will, it has to be written right. So if you want to accomplish something, I'll give you an example. Let's say, Frank, you have a Ford F-150 pickup truck that you want your grandson to have, okay? And you put in your will, I leave my 1998 Ford F-150 to my grandson, Bill. And at the time you die, you sold that Ford F-150 and bought an almost identical one, but it's a year later, right? So it's a 99.
Okay.
Well, your will's not going to work. He's not getting that. And if he tries to take it, one of the other guys is going to say, one of the other heirs is going to say, that's not yours. He left you as 98, not as 99.
Okay.
Point is, when a lawyer writes it, he'd write, whatever truck I'm driving at the time of my death, I give to. Or whatever truck or whatever vehicle I own at the time of my death, even broader, if you want to give him any vehicle you own. Point is, you have to be very careful how you write a will. So if you've done them yourself, if you've gotten a kit off the internet and filled it out, or you've gone to one of these websites where you put it in, you're not getting good advice.
Well, I'm sure this guy would have went to a lawyer to have his will written up.
Yeah.
And it just warned me because he had his will written up that these people would get the interest forever because they didn't want anybody to get the money.
Right.
You just wanted to give the interest away. Now I heard that this organization broke the will and they got their money now. So then that.
Well, there has to be a flaw in the will. You can't just. There's no reason to break a will, and there's no ability to break a will unless there's something wrong with it.
Okay. Can I ask you one other quick question?
Yeah, and Frank, let me give you one caveat, though. For instance, you can't disinherit your spouse. So if you try to write your wife out of the will, she can take against the will.
No, this wasn't the case.
Right, I know. I'm just trying to say, so there are ways that a will can be or things can be lined out. So if you're divorced, even though the old spouse is in there, we line them out or pretend they don't exist by statute. But go ahead. What's your other question?
Last year I was down in Virginia. My wife and I were riding along with with her sister and husband. They live in Virginia, and he got pulled over in a small village down there in Virginia, and he was cited for speeding. And this was just going through a little town, one of those deals. And then the officer that pulled us over, he was an officer for that little village. He asked me, I was riding in the passenger side of the vehicle, and he asked me if I had my driver's license on me, and I said yes. And then he said, may I see it? Well, I showed it to him. Now, is that normal procedure, or could have I said no, or what?
Well, that's interesting. The courts have actually struggled with this question, but the U.S. Supreme Court has said, and the Pennsylvania courts have come to the same conclusion. So the federal law is, and the law of Pennsylvania is, yes. I don't know about West Virginia law, but here's the answer. The courts have said the driver and the passenger can both be passengers can be requested to give identification and compelled to do so if they have it. And you do have to provide it. States can have statutes as long as they have a statute that requires proof of or showing your identification. Now, here in Pennsylvania, for example, if you don't have it on you, the police can issue you a citation to, produce a driver's license, for instance. If you didn't have it on, you got 5 days to show that you do have it. But realistically, as long as you check out in the electronic systems these days, they're probably going to let you go. So if you just said, well, I don't have my driver's license on me, but here's my name, date of birth, and social security number, and he checks you in the computer, and these days, of course, you pull up a picture associated with your driver's license photo through what they call JNet or PennDOT's system. That officer down there could probably even get a visual of you and go, yep, he looks just like the guy he claims he is, so I'm probably just going to figure he doesn't have his driver's license on him. They can also require drivers and passengers to get out of cars in Pennsylvania as part of a routine traffic stop.
Yeah, I was just a passenger on the, the front seat on the...
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law was driving, and I just didn't know. I never heard of that before. First he asked me if I had my license on me, and then he said, may he see it? And I was just curious. I thought, I'm going to call you sometime and ask.
And you know why he does that? Because, listen, here's good police work 101, right? Now, am I in favor of him being able to ask you for your license? I don't think so. The papers, please show me your papers so we see if you can pass through the state or not. I don't agree with that as a political standpoint, but nonetheless, from a legal standpoint, the law is he can. And at that point, good police work is what? Well, run you against it and see if you owe any warrants, if you're wanted anywhere, child's deadbeat dad.
Yeah, I knew where he was coming from, but I never heard of that before. And I complied because I don't have anything to hide or anything, but I just thought, boy, that sounded unusual to me. But then it's really... They can do that then.
Yeah, and I'm only answering from the Pennsylvania and the federal regimes. Obviously, if West Virginia had a protection I was unaware of,
it was in Virginia.
Virginia had a protection that would apply. But Virginia's also the state that has the crazy high fines on their speeding tickets, so it wouldn't surprise me if they're not very consumer friendly there.
So, okay, hey, thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.
Bye.
540-0580, weekend appointment. Carl Rominger answering your legal questions. See you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions on this dreary Saturday afternoon. Sorry about the weather, folks. I'll call Tom Donovan or whoever we talk to around here at WHP and give him a talking to about the weather. Who does the weather around here, Shane? Oh, okay. Well, we'll blame them for this. Tony, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Hey, I had a child custody question. Me and my ex-girlfriend split up about 3 years ago, and since that time, she's been in and out of jail, and once again, she's back in jail again for various charges. I guess this time she had not lived up to her end of the bargain as far as her probation was concerned, and I guess she was on the run for several months, and now she's back in custody. I've called a number of times or several different lawyers about going to court, getting full custody, and all that. And every time I talk to somebody, they always say that I need to go through mediation first. I think with her track record, mediation is kind of a moot point, and her being in jail again, I don't see why I would have to do that.
Well, I'll tell you why you have to do that. Because that's just the way they do it. In other words, and when they tell you about mediation, what they're really talking about is a concept called conciliation. See, the court has sort of created a one-size-fits-all program statewide, right? And so most counties have this conciliation process, which is called sit down with a conciliator. Now, I can tell you that a lot of times it's pro forma, meaning, I'll sit down with a conciliator with the other counsel, and, okay, the judge said we have to meet Tuesday at 9 a.m. It's Tuesday, 9 a.m. All right, boys, what's going on? My client will never agree to nothing. And the other lawyer says, my client will never agree to nothing either. And the conciliator says, okay, I guess we're done. And then we'll give you a court date to go see the judge. Now, if she's in jail, I can sidestep conciliation with a emergency custody order.
Okay.
Which that creates the emergency status. They're still going to send you back to conciliation at some point and say, when she gets out of jail, I'm not going to order what happens when she gets out of jail. I'm going to make you guys sit down and talk about that. But I can certainly put you in the driver's seat, so to speak. And under the new custody statute, which seems to really disfavor criminal matters much more than the old statute did, you probably have an even stronger hand to play.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because, up to this point, she's contributed nothing, and not that she had anything to contribute. So
right.
There was really no point in going after her for it. And just the environment that she was in, granted, she hasn't put up a fight to try and, see her daughter and all that. So it's been easy up until this point. But I just, knowing that she was on the run, it wouldn't have been out of the realm of possibility for her to come grab my daughter and go. And there wouldn't really be anything I could do about it.
That's correct. And that's why you need to have an order in place. What county are you in?
I'm in Lancaster County.
Okay. We can help you down there. Not a problem.
Okay.
And, Tony, by the way, I have a gift certificate for you if you want it. It's Torillo's Restaurant in Carlisle. You interested?
Sure.
All right. Can I put you on? I want to put you on hold. Shane will get your information. We'll mail it out to you. It's a gift certificate. I've got a few of them to give away today. It's Rillo's in Carlisle. It's a great restaurant. You're going to like it. A little bit of a drive for you, but I think it'll be worth it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Hold on, brother. Shane will get your information. Let's see. So, yeah, Tony just got his free gift certificate to Rillo's. I'm going to give a few of those out today, just as I feel like it. That's just the way it is. So don't ask me for one. You're definitely not getting one. Mary, you're on the air.
Hello, Carl.
How are you?
I'm just fine. First of all, I do want to let you know you have a delightful program, even though sometimes it's sad.
Yeah, well, sometimes we don't have the best. Unfortunately, I'm like a doctor. Nobody comes in because they're really happy and excited about something.
Exactly.
Unless it's a pregnancy or an adoption, I guess. Those are those are the exceptions.
Right. Okay, now before I ask my question, I do have just a short comment. It seems to me like, and I don't know if you'd agree with me or not, but would you agree that attorneys have a somewhat handle on how to keep a better relationship? Don't you think that most problems are because of our relationships?
Yeah, well, how would I explain that? Attorneys are notoriously, sometimes people will tell you, hard to relate to. But one of the things that they teach you how to do in law school is to separate things out into separate issues. And so we're very analytical. So I don't know if that helps us or hinders us, but sometimes it's easier for us. We also tend to be a little bit more cognizant of what we're saying to somebody than other people might be.
Now, that's very helpful. Now, here's my question. I was talking to a friend, and he said that in Pennsylvania, when you call someone on the phone and talk to them, you cannot record it. But if they call you on the phone, you can record it. I thought neither party can record it without the permission.
Yeah, neither party can record without the other's consent on a phone call.
That's what I thought.
Unless, this is an interesting phone call. This would be the exception, right? You realized when you called in that this is going to be broadcast to the world.
Yes.
So you have no expectation of privacy in this phone call.
Yes, but now can you actually replay this recording?
Yes, we can.
Because I know ahead of time it's recorded.
Correct. And you're aware that, and further, you're aware that, I'm letting 10,000 other people listen to us as we talk.
But if you called someone from your program and talked to them, could you record it?
That's the interesting question. The answer is not without their consent. So I would have to, which makes it tough in this state. Because that's not every state. A lot of states, I could literally dial you up and be like, hey, we're live on the air. Let's go, and then you'd be like, whoa, caught off your guard. You know what I mean?
Now, are you saying if you're in Pennsylvania and you do that with a state that you can record?
Oh, no, you can't do it from you as a Pennsylvanian in Pennsylvania can't do it. What's weird is people out of state can do it to you, though, right? Because they're not they're in their state doing what they want to do.
Oh, see how you clarified everything.
Now, here's the answer, too. The government can record a telephone call if one of the parties consents, okay?
Oh.
But there has to be a consensualization and certain procedures followed. And answering machines and voicemails can record you because you're aware, beep, please leave a message.
Yeah.
Well, you've just consented to being recorded because you recognize that you are being recorded.
Well, thank you, Carl. That clarifies everything.
All right, you take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, 540-0580. Get your legal questions answered. Who's next? Kelly.
Hi, Carl.
Hey.
My question is, I have custody of my grandson. I was given custody through Children and Youth Courts,
Okay.
and we've had him since December. What I'd like to know is, we want to adopt him. My daughter's not willing to, just say, okay. Obviously we need to come in and
Right.
talk to a lawyer. Is that going to be an easy type thing, or?
Well, is that we're doing a couple adoptions right now that come to mind, and I can tell you, one, the father basically was unopposed, and another, I think the father's going to consent, meaning in the one basically was wasn't exactly agreeing, but wasn't making any real opposition. Sometimes when people don't consent but they don't oppose, it's fairly simple. If they want to show up in court, and I actually represented a guy in state prison one time who wanted to prevent the termination of his parental rights.
Mm-hmm.
And we were successful. I actually convinced some crazy judge not to terminate his parental rights, even though he was going to be getting out of jail for a bunch of years. And there's some nice stepdad that wanted to adopt the kid.
Yeah.
And of course, my secretaries are like, "You're an evil, bad man." And I'm like, "Well, that's what I was hired to do." And by the way, I'm paying you with that money. I'm earmarking it for you guys.
Right.
But nonetheless, my point is, yeah, can she oppose it? Yes. But there's a legal standard, and the legal standard involves fitness, and it involves care and their ability to care for the child. And the fact that Children and Youth had to get involved at some point usually gives us some glimmer of hope that it won't be that difficult. But
she's homeless, and there's all different horrible things behind it.
Yeah, and so what we would do, quite frankly, is sit down with you and just kind of go through the exact facts, which are obviously things we're not going to vet here on the air. And then give you our odds. But the short answer is you never know.
Okay.
Because the law does favor the concept that a parent and a child have a certain bond and a certain right to be together. It has to be weighed against the best interests of the children. And so if there is some desire on her part to be a parent, sometimes that can happen. The other thing is, though, and this is what we sometimes counsel, because I've represented people who are in your daughter's position.
Mm-hmm.
I've counseled them, why don't you let the grandparent adopt? Because you got to get your house in order. You're so far out there right now. But more importantly, if this kid ends up in the system or somehow ends up out there, in the wide world.
That's not going to happen because we're not letting him go.
Right, I understand that. But I say, if that were to happen, something happens to you tomorrow or something, I don't know.
Right.
It's better nonetheless that it's a grandparent, because if you're going to have meaningful contact, that's they're much more likely to let you back into that kid's life or keep you in that kid's life than a foster family or stranger is going to.
Correct. Yeah.
So, yeah, come see me. I'd be happy to help you. Rob Culling in my office does adoptions on a regular basis. So.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh boy, let's see here. Shane, I got enough time to take another caller, don't I? Before I have to go. Oh, yeah, he's nodding his head. Fred, you're on WHP 580.
Yes, sir, Carl. I've been renting to a couple for over a year now.
Okay.
And I come to find out there's another family living with them.
Always
What can I
interesting.
do?
Well, you can do a couple of things. One is you can go to them and say, "What's going on?
Yeah.
I like you as tenants, and you've been doing a good job, and you're paying your rent, and I hate to evict somebody because of something silly like letting somebody come and stay."
I already said that, but go ahead.
And if they say, "Well, we need them to help pay the rent,"
Yeah.
next question is, are they damaging the place, or are they over capacity? I mean, what are we talking about? Sardines in a can here?
It's over capacity, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, you might go to them and say, "Listen, I just can't in good conscience let you stay with this many people here, so I'm going to have to evict you."
Yeah. Just evict the person with the lease, and the other two will go, I guess, huh?
Well, yeah, except that I'd probably get their names, and, if I was going to be real coy about it, I'd go to them and be like, "Listen, I need to know who else is here. I need
who's there.
I need information on them," and then you file against everybody, because unfortunately, now that they're in the door, you get the eviction order for the other people. The constable shows up and says, "Well, I've got an eviction order and possession against, Bill and Mary, but I don't have anything against Ted and Susan here." And Ted and Susan are like, "Well, you can't kick us out because the order doesn't have us on it."
Yeah, but they never had a lease or nothing.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
But, there's this thing out there called squatters' rights, which isn't technically what we have here. But the idea is, and I'll give you an example. I've had this happen.
Yeah.
Mister, I just need a place to stay, and I'm going to sign the lease, and I can be there tomorrow to sign the lease and pay you the first rent check.
Right.
And you're like, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put the key under the mat, and I'll come get it, and I'll come sign it in the morning." Once that happens, if that guy doesn't sign that lease or give you the first rent check, you still have to evict him.
Yeah.
So that's my point. Once their foot's literally in the door, like that old sleazy insurance salesman, you can't, that goes door to door back in the old days. Once his foot in the door, you ain't getting rid of him without a fight.
Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah. I heard Bob Durkin was on Friday night. Did you have anything to do with that?
No.
He was really saying how bad it is for the landlord.
Oh, yeah.
They have no rights and what have you. Well,
Yep.
I was glad to hear that.
Landlord has rights, but unfortunately, they're very tempered.
Oh, yes. Yes, I know what you're saying there.
All right, Fred, I got to go to break.
Okay.
Where are you from, Fred?
Right, bye-bye.
Hey, Fred. Oh, well. I was going to give Fred a free gift certificate, but I guess I got one more to give away now. 540-0580. See you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Hey, Paul Chase, my buddy down in Lancaster, who practices around the mid-state. He's a realtor who does a lot of short sales, foreclosure-type work for people who are underwater on their mortgage or facing potential foreclosures or even are in bankruptcy, but still want to get rid of the property in the above-board manner of selling it if possible. Sent me some statistics from Realty Track that there were only 44 new filings last month in, I guess that's April, for foreclosures, but there was a record in March of 271 foreclosures for Dauphin County. Cumberland County at the same period had 81 new foreclosures in April, most in Mechanicsburg, Carlisle, Camp Hill, and Enola. Lancaster County had 100 new filings last month. Most of them were in Lancaster, with Lidditz, Columbia, Ephrata, and Elizabethtown rounding out the top five. And York County had a whopping 237 foreclosures filed, most of them in and around York City. So foreclosures are still happening left and right. People are having a lot of trouble with those mortgages. If you're a little behind, a lot behind, you want to figure out what to do, contact Paul. He works with Caldwell Banker Select Professionals down in Lancaster. But like I say, he travels around the mid-state, and I know him from hanging out with him in the Camp Hill area. So 735-8400, you can get hold of Paul or just shoot me an email, and I'll hook you guys up. But if you're interested in unloading a house, or you're behind and you want a little help or figure out what your options are, and don't, it's a no-brainer. I mean, he's not going to force you to do anything. Just talk with him if you want to keep it and you just want to have a backup plan. He's a good guy to talk to. So talk to Paul Chase, 735-8400. And let's see who's next. Linda, you're on the air.
Hello, Carl. Thanks for your great show.
Thank you.
When people call in and ask if they need a lawyer, it makes me think of two situations that I knew about. One was my neighbor got a minor charge and had to go before the district judge. And she even had a friend who was a lawyer who said he'd go with her, but she's like, nah, I'm innocent. And she said till she got done, she got drug over the coals, and the whole time she was thinking, I wish I had a lawyer here beside me. And then one time our family needed a lawyer. We got a name of a good one, and although it was painful to write out the check, it was, I think, some of the best money we ever spent. So people should really consider it if they're facing a difficult situation.
I really appreciate that. And obviously, again, I'm a little biased, but, I just went over and I got my car inspected by Sam and Jerry's Garage in Carlisle. They do a really good job, and I like those guys over there. And, I go over there, and he's explaining to me, well, it's going to cost, this is what it's going to cost, this is what you need. And I'm like, just, you're the expert. You do what you need to do to make sure my car doesn't fail or blow up or the brakes go out, because I'm not the right guy to do that. And
Yep.
That's kind of how I approach things. And sometimes I get a little miffed when I have somebody that comes in to see me and even pays me and then doesn't follow my advice.
Right, that's important.
But nonetheless, I'm like, you did what? Didn't we talk about this? And I mean, and the funny part is that usually makes me more money in the long run. Rarely does following my advice make me less money.
Yeah.
Or I should say, not following my advice make me less money. And I always joke, too, the other thing is most people, and this is the same, I'm sure doctors, and of course you don't want to joke about this, but I'm sure a lot of doctors will say the same thing, which is, people come in with their leg literally falling off, and you go, okay, well, if you'd have come here when this first happened, I could have patched you up, and it would have been a very simple procedure and 99.9% successful. But since you chose to, in my world, sign the contract that you didn't have anybody read, and then go ahead and start, quote, litigating this contract dispute 2 years later on your own, you're now in a position where your discovery's overdue. It's a contract you never should have signed. And a buddy of mine just did that. He and I were in court, and I was like, did you actually sign this thing? And he looks at me and he says, I didn't actually read it. And I said, you didn't read it, did you? Because if you'd have read it, I know you're a smart guy, and I know if you'd have read it. And he said, I just figured it was a standard contract. Anyhow, okay, I can go on and on like that. But no, Linda, I think you're absolutely on the mark there.
Very good. Thanks again for a great show.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And the boy I'm talking about, if he's listening, he's going to be laughing too, because he knows he should have read it. He didn't even need me to read it. It was one a contract that was so obviously lopsided. But that's the problem with the fine print, man. They make it really small, and then Shane's nodding his head over there. Shane's like, I don't read 18 paragraphs of fine print. I figure whatever it says, it says. Yeah, right. Exactly. Liz, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi. I was calling. We have a major flooding issue in our neighborhood.
Right.
And it's actually 3 neighborhoods really close together. And what happens is if we get heavy rain in a short period of time, we have like drains in the street and sewer systems that are supposed to collect the rain and take it somewhere.
Okay.
It's not doing its job, basically. The drains are totally backing up, and then what happens is it starts to flood the street, and it floods our front yard. I mean, it happens not just to us, but our neighbors, too.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates a problem because it blocks the road. It's dangerous. It's causing sinkholes. It's flooding people's basements. Like, I know myself and my neighbor, we don't get water in our basement unless our front yards are flooded.
Okay.
Regular rain, it can rain for 3 days straight, and we have no water. But if it rains heavy and it floods the front yard, we have water. And, we've talked to the township. It's been happening for about 4 or 5 years. And numerous people have complained to the township. And the township has the township manager actually sent me an email in 2009 and told me that they were doing a study on how to fix this problem. And so my main question is, I'm thinking you should be beyond the study phase
right.
by now. Is there, any point to any kind of litigation or any kind of, class action thing that could make them move faster?
Well, the short answer is, if you'd hired me, let me tell you what I would do. First thing I'd do is get hold of the township, talk to the solicitor, maybe talk with the engineers over there, and find out where they're realistically at and what's going on. If there's answers are satisfactory, then we stand down. If the answers aren't satisfactory, we have to analyze the legal issues. A township can be sued, and things can be forced upon them in certain circumstances. However, Pennsylvania recognizes a doctrine called the common enemy doctrine, and water is considered to be the common enemy of the people, meaning that if I put some blacktop on my land and all the water starts running off just kind of down the slope and onto your property, hey, that's your problem because your water's the common enemy. Now, this doesn't take into account environmental regulation. This doesn't take into account other kinds of zoning or codes, etc. This just takes into account the general common law. But nonetheless, because water's the common enemy, you've got to show that the township has done something negligently to artificially channel the water or artificially concentrate the water onto your land. And so if we could show that they built a big pipe and it's discharging a certain way, which is causing all these problems, then that's the easy one. Otherwise, it might just be a political solution, which is to get everybody together and just get to all the township meetings and start saying, we need an answer, we need an answer, we need this done, because otherwise we're going to vote Liz for township supervisor.
Yeah. And we've had some pressure because, my neighbor is a lot more active about it because he has no kids and he's older.
He's got nothing to do, is what you mean.
And people to the meetings, and he's had a lawyer talking to them, but it doesn't. I mean, they just don't seem to care. They give us a good answer, and then they do nothing.
Right.
That's basically what we're seeing anyway, and then they've kind of stopped answering us. I've sent a couple more emails and no answer, and we've left messages and no answer. They don't want to talk to us about it anymore.
Well, and that's the other question is depends on how much money you want to spend, but I have been hired before to go to township meetings with folks simply to help them, quote, address the township, end quote. Hey, they're here, they have a lawyer, here's what they want to know about, and they're going to have me follow up and see what you guys are doing, but that costs money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Yeah, it was one of the very first cases I was involved in, Shane, involved a township and a farmer and water and a lot of rain. And it's weird because, we've had all this rain this year, right? Well, the one that I was involved in up in Crawford County years ago, they had historically high amounts of rain in a 1 or 2 week period where just water was just inundating the area. And PEMA was out there writing their low-interest loans and everything, and that's when all these issues come to light because most of the designs and problems with the flooding and the water and the channeling, when it's the normal water flows, don't come to bear. But when the 100-year flood is on, like it is in the Mississippi, all of a sudden we're opening levees we never opened before, and we're flooding areas that have never seen flooding before. And that's exactly what's happening, of course, right now in central Pennsylvania because we've had a very, very wet couple months with record set in April, and now we're supposed to get rain the rest of this week. Now the water table, the water drains well around here, but the water table's very high, so I expect to hear more water-related problems coming in the law office here. All right, guys, I got to go to break. I'll see you in a minute. 540-0580. Oh, yes. I love this song. I think sometimes we got to get All My Rowdy Friends Have Settled Down by Hank Williams Jr., though. That's how I feel sometimes, when I try to rouse the boys to go out drinking, and they're like, oh, I got to go home, I got to do this. You got to go take care of your kid. Oh, boy. All right. I'm my only rowdy friend I have anymore. At least I'm my own best friend.
You're the only friend.
Ann, you're on WHP 580. What's going on?
Did you say Ann?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure because I've been waiting for it's my turn. First, I wanted to say hello and to tell you I think it's wonderful that your station offers a program like you have there going for the people. It's just absolutely, really wonderful.
I give R.J. Harris all the credit for coming up with the idea.
Oh, I listen to R.J. Harris every day. But he's terrific, too, the whole staff. Well, I have really two questions. Number one, I'm parents of a daughter who is going through very, very difficult times. She's a single parent, and I think her house is going into foreclosure. So my first question is, when that process starts, how long is a person allowed to stay in their home while the process is, going through and being worked on?
Well, Well, the short answer is I've held up foreclosures for as long as a year and a half or 2 years, although we would never say we held it up. Obviously we're just asserting all of our legal rights in court because just like a regular lawsuit, a foreclosure requires them to prove things, and it goes through all the normal stages. Now, you have to have meritorious defenses, but here's what's happening. And you ever hear that? You ever hear the term puppy mill? The idea that they have a mill where they just have a million puppies, they're churning them out, and they're all sickly and low quality.
No.
Well, that's a term of well, here's the idea. There's all these foreclosures are. And I just read a thing from Paul Chase a minute ago about the record number of foreclosures going on out there. They're all being done very sloppily, and they had these things called robo-signers most recently heard about where nobody really knew whether everything was checked or not.
Yes,
We're finding that a lot of the foreclosures, if you just read them over, there's obvious errors in the pleadings, for instance.
Okay.
So the first thing I can do is assert a objection saying, hey, this wasn't signed by the right person, or this doesn't have all the right information in it, or you claim that you sent an act blah, blah, blah letter, but I don't see the actual date or the letter attached. And that alone can tie up the foreclosure for months. So even if you haven't paid your bills, have no great excuse, the other side, you're still entitled to have the lawsuit filed properly. And that alone slows things down rapidly. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody into frivolous litigation, because here's the downside to that.
Right.
The other side then occurs more attorney's fees, which potentially become part of any judgment against you, may eat up equity you have in the property, et cetera. So in any given case, what we're going to do and how we're going to handle it's very different. I had another client. We stalled her foreclosure only because we were trying to get part of the loan modification agreement with Bank of America, and it takes them so long to process the paperwork that Bank of America was going to foreclose on her before the other half of Bank of America approved her for the program.
Gosh. So she wouldn't be put out like in a month's time.
No. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you can be looking at months and months, and frankly, want to slow it down. Sometimes we can even enter into agreements.
Okay. Well, now that's comforting to know, because, it's a very difficult time for her. I feel so sad. She's got, one daughter, so on. But, that's comforting to know that, they wouldn't be put out like overnight.
No, absolutely not. And it's funny. I get people. I had somebody come and see me the other day. They got the act letter that says, we're going to be sending you a foreclosure. Yeah. And they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have to move. And I'm like, they haven't even filed the foreclosure yet.
When you get something like that, yes. I'm sure,
And it's from our standpoint as a lawyer, since we know how long it really takes, we're like, no, you're fine. But from their standpoint, not having ever had anything like that happen to them. And remember, a lot of people who are getting foreclosed on right now are just good people who never had a legal problem in their life. They just don't have any money.
Right. Well, that's what's happening here. So, and the second thing that I wanted to comment on is right now it has a court case going on because of her little job and everything. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to just point out this: why can't attorneys, not all attorneys I know will be like this, but why can't they, when they look at the bigger picture of where clients coming from, like their background with hard times and money problems and so on and so forth, and know how, why aren't they more like, I hate to use the word kinder, but more like encouraging, like just getting back to a client because they know that a client is sick with worry and wondering how things are going. Well, why can't they take that valuable time just to give a quick phone call or have a secretary call?
The short answer, and I'll to defend my colleagues and maybe myself once in a while, we're always putting out fires, meaning we're dealing with whatever the momentary crisis or deadline is. Yeah. But you're right, and that's I actually said this at a lawyer meeting the other night. I said there was a group of us and they were talking about there was a reference that this lawyer had not returned some client's phone call in 6 months, and it was an ethical problem, And somebody said, was there an ethical issue there? And I said, I don't know if there's an ethical issue. I don't even need to address that. I can tell you that when I was growing up and I told the guys I hung out with that I was going to go to law school, and they were a little older than me and had some rental apartments and had used lawyers over the years. They said, if you want to be the greatest lawyer in the world, all you have to do is return your phone calls.
Oh, and that makes sense. But even if you don't return them all the time and you're wondering how the case is going or what's happening or what went on, just have your secretary call the client then.
And that's where, with modern communication, with emails, for instance, in my office, when a document comes in, we email it to you. When a document goes out, we email it to you. And we answer quick email. In other words, we've been able to use technology to really better communicate with the clients. I originally started emailing things to people to save the postage because I'm such a cheapskate. and then I discovered that people were really happy. They're like, wow, this is great. I get it the same day you guys get it.
Well, it's that idea of connecting and just reassuring your client, okay, we're working on this, is happening, or don't worry, but nothing. I mean, this one person, it's just as sad to see.
And part of the problem, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but part of the problem is there's a lot of people in my profession whose people skills are a little challenged. And that's the same of any profession. But in order to be a lawyer, in order to get through law school, you don't have to have a good bedside manner, and you don't have to be kind, and you don't have to be polite, and you don't even have to be sympathetic. In fact, sometimes those traits might not always be desirable in a particular lawyer in a particular case. But I agree with you, and I spend a lot of time telling clients why we're doing what we're doing. And I say, I hope I'm not boring you, but I want you to understand that, here's why we do it the way we do it. And I think people appreciate that.
Well, I just think the connection to reassure a client and not being like they're left out in the dark about, what's going on, just a little phone call, like, don't worry, we're working on this, or something happened or whatever.
Yeah, and I got to let you go, but I'll...
the whole time through a case and you don't get that kind of feedback.
Go watch, I'm pretty sure is it Franz Kafka's The Trial? Is it The Trial? I'm pretty sure it's The Trial. And if you go get the movie, it's an old Orson Welles movie.
I like Orson Welles movies, yeah.
Okay, watch that movie. I always tell people, because you'll appreciate this. I always tell young lawyers, you got to watch that movie to understand how clients feel, because it's about a guy named Kay who's stuck in a legal system with no answers. And if you watch it, you'll appreciate why I tell young lawyers you've got to watch that, because that's how your client feels. And even though you're trying to explain things to them, so it's The Trial, Franz Kafka, old Orson Welles movie. Watch it.
So helpful if these lawyers would just,
I know. I got to let you go because I got to take 2 more callers in 3 minutes.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Let's see. Ann, you're on the air.
Ann?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, my daughter is my power of attorney, and she's going into bankruptcy.
Okay.
And she will get my whole estate. She and my grandkids. Now, since she's going to be in bankruptcy, will they be able to take her inheritance if I die, while she's still in bankruptcy?
The short answer is potentially yes.
They will.
Potentially. The long answer is no if you do it right. Come see me, okay?
I better come see you then because I'm really worried.
Yep, come see me. I'll fix it.
Thank you so much, Carl.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Carol, I'll have to take you next week.
Okay.
All right, call me next week. All right, guys. Go to weekendappointment.com, sign up for your free will. Go to romingerlaw.com, check out our new law firm website. We're in Lancaster, Chambersburg, Harrisburg, Carlisle, York, wherever you need us to be. We got 10 locations we can meet with you now. Contact me off the air to learn more about that. All right, guys, see you next week.